I'm Lauren from Artist
Hi,
Moving.
everyone.
Really excited. It's the end of year, our end of year podcast. So today
Yeah.
we're just gonna kind of be in review of what we all did and what we accomplished.
Yeah.
Um,
Like
yeah.
what did we do at Art is Moving in the physical world? And then what
Mhm.
did we talk about on the podcast? Yeah. So
Yeah.
all right, let's dive right in. The
Okay.
year started off, right? Every
hmm
January, you and I have our meeting, we set our goals for the
hmm
year. Um, and then we just kind of fly from there. And so we set
hmm
ourselves some goals.
Yeah.
And then the first conversation we had was with Heidi. She's the executive
hmm
director of Women's Voices Now.
hmm
And we asked her that question: how can art be a catalyst for positive change? Obviously, I think we asked some important questions.
hmm
It was a really important one. And it just, the work that Women's Voices Now is doing is just feels like more and more important
I think
on a
so.
daily basis. Heidi mentioned how what she gets to watch is people using the creative process to tell their real life story.
Your story. Yeah.
And they do it in this way where it actually can create positive change because they're showing someone something that maybe they haven't ever heard or seen before, a story they didn't even know existed.
hmm
And maybe it's a story they don't even want to hear, you know?
Yeah. So it's almost like, yeah, it's really important right now because of what's happening in the Middle East and what
Mhm.
is happening to women's rights. So it's giving women who are becoming voiceless on some level voices, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, for sure. Super important. And
Yeah.
so oh yeah, just wanted to I'll put like links to all of the
Mhm.
podcast conversations we had
Mhm.
this year, just to make it easy. If one of them pops up that you're like, oh, I really want to dive deeper into that question, you can link to that. So then we went into March, and
Mhm.
we have our free art project, which we launched in 2021, beginning of 2021, in the
Mhm.
middle of the COVID pandemic. And it was stuffing little libraries with packets full of art materials, and that just went crazy with people excited about it. Got lots of
Mhm.
volunteers, so we started sending out batches twice a year. Our first batch for 2022 was in March,
Mhm.
and we sent 135 packets, so that's over 800 art break opportunities to our volunteer stewards at the time,
Mhm.
and they distributed them for us. Thank you very much to our
Mhm.
volunteers. And we got to just continue to expand that project in March. And we also talked to
Ping
Ping Ho,
Ho, yeah,
right?
of the UCLA Arts and Healing Program, which was a really fantastic conversation. For me, that was one of the most fascinating, interesting conversations of the year. So watch it. Mhm.
Yeah, I thought it was
Or listen to it.
yeah. So the question we asked her is, what is the relationship between creativity and mental health?
Mhm.
Again, wow, super
Mhm.
important conversation that seemed to get even more important to ask and find the answer to as the year
Mhm.
progressed,
Mhm.
2022. It's, becoming increasingly apparent that mental health needs to be something that every person is talking about every single day.
Mhm.
And she talked about something that really stuck with me in that conversation, is she talked
Mhm.
about, and I know you and I have experienced this before, how art has this unique power to connect people with one another more quickly than anything else.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that really, that part of the conversation really um, stuck with me, because
Mhm.
it is, and I don't, and maybe, you and I have talked about this,
Mhm.
right? You always talk about it's sort of that boundary melter,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That bridge builder,
Yeah.
uh, you know, but yeah, that was really interesting.
I think it, and also I know it's a really interesting subject because you could talk about it forever, but it has something to do with dissolving boundaries, feeling safe, but and then something is like this is what we're supposed to be doing as humans, creating together. I think
Yeah,
that's
we were right. We were born to be doing this,
yeah, to be creating with each other, to be playing, not to be like I don't know, just unengaged, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. And
Hmm.
then we moved on to April. And what did
Yeah.
we have in April?
We had our symposium, which was our first time we did the symposium, and that was a huge task. So thank you, Lauren, and thank you, me, because it was a big project. We didn't know it was going to be
Lisa.
so
Thank you,
big. We
Lisa.
had this idea, which we always have big ideas, and then once they begin to manifest, it's like holy cats, that was a lot of work to do, but it was a really successful one. We got how many people together? I think we had three
Yeah.
workshops.
There were 3 live workshops on the
Mhm.
day of the symposium. So that
Yeah.
was April 16th. There's an archive page of the symposium on our website for anyone that wants to do it themselves. Again, it'll be there.
Mhm.
So 3 live workshops that day, and then there were 2 performances, and there were also 3 art conversations.
Mhm.
And that's where we connected with um, Denise Wolf, who
Uh-huh.
we are going to be working with in 2023. We
Exciting.
made lots of connections. We reconnected with people we had been connected with in the past, like Mary
Mhm.
Rockwood Lane.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, it was a super intense day,
Mhm.
but I felt, it's like one of those days that it was like our break day where you feel
Yeah.
reinvigorated
Yes.
about why we do what we do. And so,
Right.
and it's always so great to connect with people who are also art advocates and who um, kind of already understand the power of art, and you
Right.
don't spend a lot of your time trying to convince them that
Right.
it's worth their time. That
Right.
you get to talk about other things.
And I think the group that we gathered was wanting to take action, meaning wanting to inspire other people in the world to use art as a tool for mental health, for empowerment, for all these good things in our life that create balance and harmony.
Yes,
So I
yes,
think if you are listening to this and you want to take some action in terms of like serving people with art or teaching people or offering them art, check out our symposium because I think there was
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
nuggets in
It
there. Yeah.
was
Hmm.
for sure. That's a great point. It was full of lots of ideas of
Hmm.
and actual tools that could be used if you're an art facilitator or someone who's interested in creating your own community art project
Yeah.
or program or
Hmm.
group that does art together. There were lots of ideas for that. And then there were awesome performances, and the
Hmm.
conversations are ones that I've listened to more than once. Very interesting conversations.
And I
So that
think that also, sorry, that opened the door for us is that we've been doing this, gosh, oh my, I don't know, almost 2 decades of serving with art to the public, to the wider public, getting people engaged in art, to do art. And we actually put on that almost, I don't know how, like almost expert hat, where we kind of are like now offering people consultations. If you are interested in doing something, we are full of energy and ideas to help you to guide you in that way because we became kind of like consultants through that
yeah.
symposium. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's
Awesome.
the thing is that anyone who wants, to put more art out into the world,
Mhm.
we're all
Mhm.
for it, and if
Mhm.
we can help in any way,
Mhm.
we definitely wanna do that. So if you vibe with what we're doing, with what we're trying to do, then, please get in touch, and if we are able to help in any way, either by just talking you through it, or putting you in touch with some people that we're connected with, whatever, anything that we can do to make more art happen
Mhm.
is a awesome thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Perfect.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about our workshop was about that, was like
Mhm.
basically how you take your idea and turn it into a community art project. So if you have an idea, check out our workshop, and then if you want more time with us, then just reach out. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
So, and if you are someone who went to the symposium and you like the symposium and you want more of those in the future,
Mhm.
those are not easy to put on.
Right.
Um, so consider making a donation to Art is Moving. I will put a link to that because, yeah, it's all voluntary. And, like this service that we are using right now is not free. We have to pay for it. So, and it gets paid for by individual donations. So show your
I
support.
mean, I think you were talking about that before, but I think part of our what's that called, awareness campaign for 2023 is really to inform our audience, our community, our tribe that we are volunteers for Art is Moving, and that everybody who works for Art is Moving, all our stewards that do things for us, our Art Break Day hosts are all volunteers. So it's a beautiful thing. It is volunteer. I mean, that's like
Well,
amazing.
yeah, volunteerism is definitely something that is I'm I'm a big fan of it. Obviously, I've been doing it for so long, and but it is completely volunteer led organization, and it's a volunteer. I don't know the words to use, but it's like all volunteers. It only happens because people volunteer their time, sometimes their own money,
Yes.
all of their energy, and we help when we can. And but yes, so we only can do what we do because of individual donations. So if you like what we do, consider helping out and supporting whatever you can. Every dollar does count.
It does count. And we do use it, like,
yes,
really use it. We stretch it. We
we
stretch
do.
it.
We're
Every
very
dollar stretched to the max.
we're very creative, right?
Yes, exactly.
So okay, so then in April we also talked to our friend Michelle about how art and spirituality intersect.
That was a good conversation. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that we talked about a ton of stuff, but she talked about how because she mentioned that during COVID she had these little squares that she would kind of write on, and she used art as focusing as a focus kind of as a focusing tool. And I found it really interesting because I don't think a lot of people view art in that way. As a tool for calm and focus and meditation. I think people think, I don't know, I would love to know what people think, but my impression is that a lot of people think it's like a sort of like willy-nilly thing, just like leisure or, thing that people do. And it's definitely perhaps that way for some when it's strictly process-based. That's sort of what we want with an art break. We want it to feel comfortable and not forced and things like that. But if you're talking like artists, a lot of it is planned out. A lot of it is done 500,000 times before it gets to that right one. There's a lot going into art. It's multifaceted. And it was interesting that Michelle was using her daily art practice as a way for setting an intention for the day and like that. And she was talking about ways and strategies that people could do that. And that one of them that she noticed for her is that it almost helped her get out of her own way, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I think I love that art is a tool, and I think that's an embodiment and embracement. It is a tool, but it's also, I always say it's like getting it out of you. So say if you have negative emotions, anxiety, and if you can just release that, because a lot of times we don't release those emotions or even joy, you know what I mean? Like you release it, it just then becomes a tool for you for transformation. Focus, calmness, and healing. I love that. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah. And then in May, we sent 150 art packets to Mary Rockwood Lane, who you've been connected to for a very long time. And we connected as an organization for the symposium, had a great conversation with her that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
She was at a nurses convention. And so we donated 150 of our free art packets for her to pass out to nurses who were attending the convention so that they could get ideas for taking an art break and making art part of their life, which is important for anyone, but felt super important for nurses who are experiencing
COVID, burnout, and all that.
Yeah, and there's a lot, of mental. You just got to mentally take care of yourself, emotionally take care of yourself, and art and taking an art break in the way that we try to present it, which is again that process, not product. It's really about helping you feel good. It's not about making good art kind of process. And that's the free art packet hopefully helps people get kind of in that zone. So
It's
that was
about
exciting.
getting it out and then looking at it and going, tell me something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then
Talk
like,
to me. Tell me about just what came out of me. You know what I mean?
right.
And
And
then you
then
develop
almost
this
like,
relationship.
yeah, but then like almost letting it back in,
Exactly. You're letting it
like
back in.
this-
You're having a different perspective and conversation with it instead of like, I think even it's interesting because people fear art for that very reason. It's
oh
like,
yeah,
art, I don't want to know what's inside me. Do you know what I mean? So, you have to, there's a sense of courage. Creativity does take courage. But
it does. It does. And
once you
it does.
do, it improves your life a zillion percent.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does. Do it. Yes. Even, well, yeah, do it even if it scares you, right? If it
Yeah.
scares you,
Yeah.
maybe it's slightly worth doing, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So then we let's see, in May we also talked to Chantalie Gardner about how art can help someone share their story. So we asked her
Mhm.
how can art help someone share their story? And she um that was so fun to talk to her. That was a great conversation. And
Mhm.
I love what she said about storytelling being something that, I mean, obviously I view it as an art form, and that a lot of people don't necessarily understand that sort of they're doing art when they're telling a story. And
Yeah.
so storytelling can be that approachable art form that is sort of witnessed and um, performed by or created by almost anyone, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Telling your story. And then I also think on a psychological level, you become almost your own mythology. So it's like, we're all so fascinated with the Marvel characters, right? Superheroes, when actually you can be a superhero in your own story. It's like when you kind of shift into your own mythology, that's powerful, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's that what you were just talking about, where like if you imagine if you wrote a story,
Hmm.
and or wrote your own story, like your
Hmm.
story,
Hmm.
and read it back to yourself and the
Mm.
conversation that you're having,
Mhm.
that cycle again of
Yeah.
getting it out and then reflecting on it and taking it back in. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
that whole cycle again. Yeah. So that was May, and then we went into June, and we talked to Noelle about how painting saved her life.
Mhm.
She definitely has a super interesting story.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, just sort of found painting in her 40s and talked about how that was the time when she was ready. She was ready for transformation and change, and painting was the thing that really helped her through that.
And she told her story through the painting, but like we're talking about this feedback loop, this 8 that we're talking about where you get it out, you reflect on it, and you take it back in. That's what she did for actually trauma in her life in her younger years. So she actually reflected and it became like a memoir, but also it's a gift to other people who have been through trauma because she shares her story. And, these paintings are like the visual image of her story, and then she goes and she writes about the story. So very powerful. But this I love this feedback loop. You get it
Yeah.
out, you reflect, you take it back in a different way, and it becomes like a dance. It's a good
Yeah.
dance.
It's the art dance, right? That
Yeah, it's
you
the art dance, man.
and
Yeah.
it's so interesting also. It's this personal, right? Sharing your personal story.
Right.
It can become a universal guide for someone else.
I think that's that you're not alone, Yana thing, because we always think we're alone, especially in
Mhm.
traumatizing situations or experiences. And then, when you voice it, then there's like all these people are like,
Yeah.
I've been there, But wow,
Yeah.
you had the courage to like write it out and speak
Yeah.
it and
Mhm.
hold up the mirror to yourself, but then to the world as well.
Yeah. Love
Powerful.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then in August, we talked to Esther about feeding your creative life. We asked her, how do you feed your creative life? And that's so interesting because that conversation turned into talking about creativity being cyclical because we
Yeah. That's right.
dove deep into that conversation of, art, being an artist, you could have an analogy of it being in seasons. And
Mhm,
so
mhm,
what do you do during the winter?
mhm.
And the winter would be that quote unquote downtime, that where you're not producing something on the outside,
Right,
right? But
right.
we talked about how important it is to value and cherish that time, because you are doing work on the inside, right?
Mhm,
And again,
mhm,
that's that cyclical back and forth. And
mhm,
because I know in my own
mhm,
life and
mhm,
in my own artwork, there's a
mhm.
lot going on when I'm not
Right,
making something with my hands.
right.
And I would say that 80% of my artwork is like inside my head. The work is done in there.
So that's another point that we try to make too, is broadening the definition of what it is art is, and what even in taking an art break is. Like what you're talking about, this process that's going inside your brain is you're taking an art break, right?
Yes. Oh,
You're
yeah,
just
right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well,
Mhm,
and that's, we have art breaks like that on our
mhm.
website, which is
Right.
like, we have one where we're like, sit on a park bench
Mhm.
and, um, figure out how many different sounds you're hearing at once.
Right.
And, that's a mental art break.
Mhm, mhm,
You're not doing anything with your hands, but in my definition, yes,
mhm,
you're still taking an art break, right? That's when it lends itself towards meditation and
mhm.
honestly just taking a really, really ginormous deep breath. And that
Yes.
is what art breaks do for
Mhm,
you,
mhm.
when
And
you
almost
let
like yeah, it's almost like breathing, meditating. It's a tool again. It's a cyclical tool of transformation, of well-being. Um, yeah, and and the definition is so broad, right? You can't
oh,
there's
yeah.
like I think that's what a lot of people do is they go, "Oh, art, that's what it is." You know what I mean? "Oh, art, that's no, 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 that's art. Oh, no, no, that's art." When
Yeah.
actually it's like art is this morphing cosmic art dance.
Yeah. Right. I love that, the art dance, yes. So then in September, we had our break day, and one of our
Mhm.
goals was to be, one of our hopes.
Physical.
Yes, was to be in the physical space again in
Mhm.
2022, and we were.
Yeah,
So
that
we
was exciting.
had, 19 registered worldwide locations. Some of them were physical, some of them were online.
Mhm,
All of them were excellent. Again, all of those hosts are volunteer hosts,
mhm,
because of the, individual donations we have received in the past. We were able to help those hosts with $700 in grants
which is
for
awesome, yeah.
to go towards their art break days. All of them, it was for art supplies,
Yeah,
and so they were able to provide supplies for their community to come together and take an art break because of our individual donations. So thank you.
and
Um,
just to underline that, a lot of the communities that they were working are really underserved. Like, we have, Aurora in not Aurora, Krupa in India. That's a very she's it's a they need supplies. So, it really goes towards a good cause and really
yeah.
opens
Mhm. Yeah, and we
opens
have Manali, she was in Australia.
yes, which is big.
She has, like, 4 jobs, just
Mhm,
to be able, and she does that so that she can do art on the side, which is so
mhm,
amazing, and it felt really good to be able to support her in her efforts to bring art into her community. She's part of
mhm,
Friend of the Mind, and Krupa is, Sankapala Art
mhm.
Therapy, and, yeah, just being able to do that, and we couldn't do that. We could not do that without individual donations, so thank you to those folks who helped us make that happen.
And who are gonna make it happen.
We're
Thank
gonna
you
make
for
it happen
donating.
again. Yes, help us make it happen
No,
again.
the more monies we get, the more we can expand our programs and the more we can give. I mean, that's what really art is moving is we're giving. We're giving free art. We're giving, Art Break Day is a free event. So it's like we're giving the world opportunities to create, to gain a tool for their own well-being. So we love it.
No, it's a thing that needs to happen all the time, and
Mhm.
that's why we'll keep doing it. So,
Yes, yes.
so then
So
yeah,
we talked to
go ahead.
Barbara in September, and what was the
Yes.
conversation
The
about?
question we asked her is, "Can art save you when you are lost?"
Yes.
And that was a very powerful, deeply feeling conversation.
Mhm.
I left that conversation like, and
Yeah.
I think I had to listen to it again right after, just because
Mhm.
there was so much covered in that conversation. But the one story, she told this story about a boy in one of her classes
Mhm.
who just was sitting there and not engaging, and his arms crossed, and she,
Mhm.
after a while, was able to discover that he just was felt like there was no reason to do anything because his future had been set for him. You know, he was
Mhm.
basically headed towards prison.
Mhm. Mhm.
So after working with him for a while, he did start doing the art and got all of was
Yeah.
processed, right? Got it out, and it gave him the ability to sort of see a different future for himself.
I think what Barbara really spoke very eloquently, she talked about reframing, how art can actually get you to reframe, meaning create new neuro links in your brain that are actually changes the chemistry of your brain, which is wow. So right, he was hopeless. He was looking at a future. I mean, he was young, early 20s, and he was going to be in jail. So he had no hope. But I think the beautiful reframing also was the project that she chose was a pillow. So they made like an art pillow, and that's what he put him to sleep every night. And that gave him hope, even when he went to jail, I think, and he came out, right? I think the story ends in a positive way.
Yeah, so it definitely, he ended up through this process and through many other things. He got
Mhm.
help from other community
Right.
members, just committed to making a positive change, and he did not end up going down that future that he believed was predetermined for him. He did.
Right.
He was able to carve another path for himself.
So
And
literally, art
yeah.
saved his life. I mean,
Art
literally.
art had a very positive influence,
Mhm.
on that person's life. Yes, listen to that story.
It's beautiful.
And then
Yeah,
we get
yeah.
into October, where we spoke again with our friend Dean, who's
Mhm,
amazing and does awesome things.
mhm,
And we wanted to ask her, we were
mhm,
talking to her about like, how does this happen and everything? And she's like,
mhm.
I basically stopped saying no to myself. So we were like, what? So we asked her the question, what
Wow.
happens when you believe in yourself? Because
Mhm.
that was the step she took, as she basically stopped saying yes to her own fear, right?
Yeah.
Just
Mhm,
no matter what, she believed in herself. She's like, I'm going to make this happen. It can happen. I believe it's going to happen. I believe in myself. And
mhm.
she's done amazing things. We had already talked to her about the Together Well Apart project, which was awesome. And she's has a fresh start project. She has a
Mhm,
book that just came out that she
mhm.
wrote. I mean, she is just unstoppable at this point.
Yeah, and, I think what I got the takeaway I got is when she said no to fear and said yes to, "I'm gonna do it," the her overall well-being, fulfillment in life just became so enhanced. When you look at her talking, she's like full of life, and it just like she's on purpose. And when you see somebody like that, and she knows that she's impacting people's lives in a positive way, but she's doing it. You know what I mean? She's in the driver's seat, where I think a lot of times fear takes over the steering wheel, and that's when you get depressed. That's when you feel out of control. So I love that part. It's like take control of the steering wheel, and dream big. And she was also about dreaming big, and you can do it once you
Yes.
set your mind to it. Yeah, that was a beautiful conversation.
Definitely. Yes. And, yeah, I mean, that was a great conversation to sort of finish the season
I
on,
think so, yeah. And what I really love about all our conversations that we have on our podcast, if you haven't listened to them, check them out because they're really deep. We go dive really deep with these amazing people who are doing amazing things in the world with the power of art. So I always have a fun time when we're talking. I'm always like,
Yeah.
wow, this is great. Art is great. Art is power.
It
Everybody
is.
needs.
Everybody needs to do it. Yes. And
Exactly.
then, yeah, I mean, I think that, and it's so interesting, just because of the way my brain works, to find all the links and how,
Mhm,
because we call this an organic conversation, where
mhm,
truly every conversation does influence the next question that we ask and the next
mhm.
guest that we have. because we do view it as a continuous conversation.
Mhm.
And if you do listen to conversation after conversation, there is a link between all of them. And there's a lot being said about art and mental health and
Mhm.
life and reflection and just so many things. So yeah, take a listen. I'd love
Mhm.
to know what everybody's favorite question is, or if there's a question we haven't
Mm.
asked yet that you're interested in, let us know. And then I
Yes.
just wanted to highlight that
Mhm.
in November and December, we did we ended our year.
Mhm.
In 2022, we got a lot of new volunteer stewards for our free art
Mhm.
packet project, which is awesome.
Mhm.
We actually ended up sending 290 packets to a long list of volunteers, and that's over 1,700 art breaks that are being offered across communities across the United States.
And just so you know, if you don't know, the free art packet usually contains 6 art breaks, which is pretty, phenomenal. And this one, we put a whole container of pastels, which I thought was really cool to like open a free packet and you get a whole like a, you know,
Yes.
super. So I
Yes.
would love to see
Yeah.
somebody's art that they create from
Yes.
one of these.
Hopefully, right? Hopefully people tackle that fear and they show us their art
Yeah,
breaks.
we want
Um,
to see.
yes, we'd love to see them,
Mhm.
and you wouldn't believe what an impact it would have on other people when you show them. When you show them your art break, it has a double effect, because you're helping yourself and then you're helping someone else.
Mhm.
And it's just connection, right? It's always nice to see where these free art packets end up, and
Mhm.
we know the large impact it has on our volunteer distributors
Mhm.
because they
That's
tell
right.
us how good it feels to be
Yeah.
able to do that. We had one volunteer tell us that she, her daughters, and she felt like little Santa's little
Yeah.
elf, right? Because
Mhm.
they just delivered them, and that felt so good to us. It's nice to know the positive impact that all the work, because these are, again, we're volunteers. It's just me and it's just Lisa right over there. We cut the paper. We use my printer at my house.
Yeah, because mine doesn't work, function properly.
Because Lisa doesn't work. We cut all the paper by hand. I am getting ideas of how to be more efficient. We get more
Yes,
efficient every time, but we
yes.
stuff them ourselves. We put the stickers on ourselves. We mail
They're
them
made with
ourselves.
love.
Made with love, and we couldn't make it happen. We have a in-kind donation from Hill and Usher Insurance for all the shipping. They're
Thank
a
you
shipping
so much.
sponsor, so thank
That's
you to
incredible because we
us.
actually couldn't do that project without Hill and Usher because they take care of shipping, and literally shipping on those boxes are usually over 20 plus
Oh yeah.
dollars. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
something that unless we get more donators, we could never do this project. So thank you, Hill and Usher. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Really.
Yes.
That's like
Yeah.
that's the force behind the project. So
It is. It is. It would be a
yeah.
it'd be a big no, I wish we could, but we can't kind of thing if
Yeah,
they didn't
yeah.
donate that, if they
So I
didn't sponsor.
think that's a beautiful example. It's also what we do with donations. We really, really max them out. So again, this is our last podcast. So we're asking you to push that button and donate today. Because we
Yes,
want to,
yes.
I mean, we have 2023, we have big visions. We usually have our big meeting in January, but we have a really cool project that we want to talk about and maybe kind
Yes.
of end the conversation that way
Yeah,
because it's
for
really
sure.
looking
We
bright.
already so we already have 2 things already lined up for
Mhm,
2023 that are a big deal.
mhm.
We have our friend Amy, who's been a long time artist moving supporter and collaborator. She's hosted our break days and she's awesome. And she's doing Fun a Day LA. And we're donating 100 free art packets for the exhibition in February. So, I'll put a link to that as well if you're interested in
Mhm,
doing that. Do that.
mhm.
And what's the other super exciting thing, Lisa?
We are doing a zine for tweens. I forgot what it's called. Don't look at me
Oh,
or
yeah.
something.
It's
So this is
a working
exciting.
title.
We from our conversations at the symposium with an art therapist, Denise Wolf. She works in the East Coast. We were like, we were also looking at tweens and teens about mental health. And we're
Yes.
thinking, what can we do? What can we do? How can we help? So we were brainstorming and we thought, what if we do a zine? So we contacted Denise Wolf and we're collaborating with her. And she has 3 graduate students that are also helping us. So
And
they're in the
a PhD student just joined us. So it's
oh
just
wow, that's
yes,
fantastic. That's
I
it's
know.
Oh, this is huge. So it's going to be a really powerful zine that we're going to get into the hands of tweens for transformation, and it incorporates like you're not alone, and it incorporates art breaks, and then I think sparks, which are like inspirational things to do, and then resources. So it's really this marriage or a partnership between a caregiver or somebody that's taking care of
Trusted,
the
trusted
trusted
adult. Mhm.
trusted adult that they kind of do it together. So then bridge, the conversation. Arts becomes the conversation and the bridge to talking about these mental health issues that we need to chat about. If you want to add more to that.
No, you covered it. I think I'm really excited. I
Mhm.
already know that 2023 is going to be fantastic,
Mhm.
and that we're going to do a lot of things with art and create a
Yeah.
lot of positive impact in the community. And
Mhm.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for being an awesome collaborator.
Thank you, Lauren, for being an awesome collaborator. I couldn't do this without you. We couldn't do this
Oh,
without each
no,
other.
it's
Um,
definitely an amazing partnership that
yeah,
super
gosh.
well. Yeah, someday we'll write that book about successful collaborations and how
Oh,
to
we
make it
will. Maybe we'll begin it in 2023.
happen. All right,
Yeah.
everyone. Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
Happy
We will,
holidays and
yep,
thank
we'll
you. All right.
see you in January.
Yay.